Hey guys, Doug the Nomadic Rifleman. So we're out here again in the woods as a family. See if I can pan over here and show you without getting the boy in there. So we have my wife right there. We have our tarp shelter, our dog. I'm not gonna go any further than that because I don't want to get our son in it. And we did a bit of a spontaneous overnight last night with some of the information we got from our previous time going into the woods as a family in inclement weather, just to continue to see if we can improve on our capacity as a family. So before I get into this, I want to go over some of the things we're doing every trip to make sure that we are actually progressing, but doing so in a way that's beneficial to our relationship and our capacity as a family. So one is doing an AAR, or an after action report, talking about the things even while you're doing them, but try to keep it positive if you're talking while you're doing things that how do you think you did overall? What are some things we can improve? What are some things we can maintain? Things we think we did well, things we think we can do better, right? And then talk about that as a family from perspective. Sometimes there's some misunderstanding about why certain things are going the way they are, and making sure that you talk as a family. Let's say you decided not to have a fire and your wife says, well, I wish we would have had a fire. Well, you probably should have explained to her the reason that you didn't have a fire was because of security considerations, or you're practicing for a heightened security circumstance. But those are things that you need to discuss with your family prior to going out. And on that note, one of the things that we did yesterday, because this was a fairly spontaneous trip, one of the things we did yesterday before we got into the woods was talking as a family about some left-right limits there we go, on what is a no-go as far as where we will call this for sure. So for us, we have a 2-year-old, a little bit older than 2-year-old son, and my wife and I, of course. So we came up with and our dog. So we came up with some ground rules, some things if we see this, then we're done, right? If our son is shivering and we have no reasonable way to improve that situation, then we're done. If you are past your ability to learn, or you are to a point where you are genuinely uncomfortably cold and there's no reasonable way to improve that circumstance, then we're done. In those circumstances, we're going to pack up and we're going to head out. We're not going to sit there and try to tough it out as a family if we don't have to do that, and potentially cause some scarring to our relationship and our ability to get out in the future and do this again, okay? So really important, guys, if you're trying to get your family out there and you've been doing this for years and you have been, you've gotten through being nervous in the woods, you've gotten through being able to be a little bit cold or a little bit hungry or a little bit uncomfortable, your family hasn't had that exposure yet. And it's important to get that stuff, how would you say that? Buffed out, or get that comfort level improved for your family so that they're not sitting there feeling like they're trapped, right? So do you think we managed that in a way that was profitable for our progress, so to speak?
I mean, we did to our best ability.
Okay. So we definitely have some things to improve on. We have some sustains as well. The shelter we made last night was pretty good. The terrain we put the shelter on, not so good. Finding a spot that's comfortable for one person is pretty easy. You can kind of wiggle into something and figure it out. Trying to figure out a place where 2 or 3 people can wiggle in and figure it out when you're not on perfectly flat terrain. I know this doesn't look too terribly rugged, and it's not, but the actual micro terrain, it's very ruddy, you might say. And finding a spot where 3 or 4 people can settle down for the night comfortably is pretty challenging.
It's like bold throughout. That makes sense. Like divoted throughout.
Yeah, like rutted.
Forest floor.
Yeah, it's like if you could imagine if there's a bunch of trees kind of laced in, and then at various levels of decomposition under the undergrowth and such. It's kind of like that. If you've ever been in Alaska, or if you've ever done wood stuff in Alaska, you're probably familiar with the kind of stuff we're talking about. The terrain here is not quite like anything I've ever seen anywhere else. It's pretty unique. But anyway, so So going out as a family, set those boundaries where you can and can't go, right? You and your wife, or whatever your family situation is, you guys need to agree on those things before you get in the woods. So there's no arguments about, this is whatever. No lack of direction, lack of any kind of misunderstandings. You don't want to have that stuff when you're already cold, tired, nervous, scared, whatever. Talk about these things, especially the way you communicate before you get in the woods. So, for example, one thing, since my wife's never done camping like this before, okay, so when you're communicating, I want you to do it like, this is the conversation we had. When you're communicating, say, I am intimidated by this, but I'm willing to push through it, or I am not willing to push through this because I am intimidated. And make sure that you're clarifying as we're communicating our level of discomfort with the circumstances, so we know that we're keeping each other in check and aware of the other's circumstance or mindset as we're out here. Don't push each other into a situation where you're trapping each other. It will not be fruitful for you, and it will likely cause damage to your relationship and put you backwards in capacity and ability. So, and the point of coming out here is so that we can be more prepared in general, so that if you ever need to be out here for whatever reason, you're not stacking stressors on top of each other. Now things are scary. We don't know what the next steps are going to be, and we're out here, and I'm already I would have already been nervous in the first place, and now there's actually a reason to be nervous on top of that. That just kind of the jitters of being in the woods for the first time. So try to make sure you're doing your best to not stack those stressors on your family if you have the ability to get out as a family and do this sort of stuff. So anyway, is there anything you'd want to add to, like, wives or kids or anything like that you think would be helpful for them? No words of encouragement or anything?
Extra clothing. Try and find like toddler thermals. I don't know if that's a thing, but warmer sleep systems.
Okay. So clothing for the wife and kids that are going to be more of a layered situation, and then a sleep system that actually works. Maybe mess with that stuff in the living room before you do it in the woods. Probably a good idea to make sure everything kind of buffs out. Keep in mind though, when you're doing it in the living room, it's all perfect environment, perfect flat floors, and it's not going to be quite that way probably in the field, but it will give you a better idea of what you're going to do before, other than just doing it live, kind of like we did, just seeing if you can make it buff, which we did, but maybe barely. So anyway, guys, it's been Doug with Nomadic Rifleman. Make sure you guys are getting out as families and, doing whatever you can. Keep it recreational as much as you can. Get a little goofy with it if you want to, and have fun, guys. Otherwise, everywhere deserves good and capable riflemen. Shalom. So if you run the rope through the bite twice, what you can basically do is when you pull it, it will more or less self-tighten itself. These are not quite right per 6, but I'll show you how to do all this on a day that's not raining and we don't have darkness. So what you want to do is take it and fluff it up a bit so you have fibers to catch the sparks. I don't want to fluff it up too much personally because I don't want to have it all burn up real fast. But the petroleum should help it. I've always used some random crap for tinder. There we go. Wow, that was fast. Something to be cognizant of that I didn't do a good job at. Probably should have put that more towards the center, but we'll move the fire as we can. Just move that direction.